Hello, my name's Jenny Seelig, sometimes known as New Uke, New York, on certain parts of the internet, and I'm here today with another one-take tutorial, meaning I sit down and live stream a workshop topic, a song that I want to teach, a technique, and then I post it on the internet without going back in and making a lot of edits. In fact, I typically make no edits at all except to trim the ends because I'm not a video editor and I would just like to create some ukulele content that might be useful to people as well as entertaining. So this is part of a series that I've been doing of these one-take tutorials specifically on the topic of transposing, and especially for people who want to transpose songs, meaning change the key, change the chords to change the key, to change the way the vocals sound. So how do you find a song that fits your voice is sort of the center question, or rather not how do you find a song, but how do you find the right key for a song that you want to sing so that you can sing it comfortably. And I do think that these techniques for transposing, for changing the keys, are useful to people who are not singing as well. So even if you're more of an instrumentalist or you aren't interested in finding a specific key for vocal reasons, I still think it's great to know about these things. In the first video, we talked about why you might want to or feel you need to transpose. In the second video, we did a longer exercise on finding the key that's right for your voice in a particular song. We used Somewhere Over the Rainbow for that video, but it's going to be a little different with each song you're looking at, depending, as I said, on the internal range of the song. And we also talked more in depth about the concept of singing up the octave and down the octave, which is a way of talking about how you can sing even in one key, how you can sing higher or lower to try to make a song fit your voice. And you can do that over the course of a whole song. You can do that bit by bit from phrases or from different sentences, different verse to chorus. You can jump around in the octave that you have within that key. But again, we talked about that in video 2. So I've got 2 more videos I plan to make in this series. This one today is video 3, and I'm hopeful that this one will cover all the tools that I think you might like to use. And we'll sort of go roughly in order from, easiest to hardest. Not hardest, but easiest to less easy in terms of doing transposing and changing the key around on a song you might want to play. And then in the final video, I'm going to talk about how to internalize transposing, how to think about it, sort of to transpose off the top of your head is what I'm thinking of that video as. So the final one will go more into how you can think about, it still won't be a lot of music theory. We're trying to avoid too much music theory in these videos, because it's not my area of expertise. I know a little music theory, but I'm not. If you want music theory videos, there's some great people on the internet who can give you those, but I'm going to keep it real simple so that we can just talk about getting to your goal, which if you're watching this video is probably finding out how to change keys so that you can play around with different arrangements and songs and make sure that you're singing comfortably or playing comfortably, because as we said in previous videos, it's usually a compromise between ease of playing the chords that you know and the chords you might need to learn and ease of singing. So let's go ahead and get started with tools. I've got my notes here that I'm going to continually refer to so that I don't lose track of what I'm saying. And I did want to say 2 sort of basic things about transposing before we got off to a running start with the tools. The first thing I wanted to say is that these tools are useful whether you're playing alone or in a group, but in a group you should only transpose the song if everyone is transposing the song. So you can't play in the key of D while everyone else is playing in the key of C and have it sound correct unless you're doing some kind of cool experimental thing that I would like to know more about. For the most part, you all need to be playing in the same key. The other thing I wanted to say is that the sort of easiest way to be able to transpose is if you know a lot of chords. So once you get past the point of knowing what the chords would be in the new key, it's easiest if you already know how to play those or if you're willing to learn them. So I would encourage you to continue to learn new chords. And if you're satisfied with just a handful of chords, that is fine, but you will limit the number of keys that you can play in. And there are some tools we'll talk about in this video that can help with that and help you keep the chords more familiar, but you will be more limited. So I would always recommend for people to continue to learn chords, continue to add to your repertoire, and do it with songs that you love, because that's going to motivate you to practice and learn new chords. So that's, in my opinion, the best way to be able to transpose. But let's talk about how you know what if I want to change this song and I know I want it to be higher and I know that I can see the chords that are here that I don't want to sing along to, how do I make them into the chords that I do want to sing along to, that will let me sing it higher. So the easiest way, as far as I'm concerned, and I think for most people, would be if there's a website that automatically does it for you, that automatically transposes. And the good news is there are a number of websites that do that, and many of them are free. And one of them we looked at in video 2. When we were looking at Somewhere Over the Rainbow, I showed you the Ultimate Guitar website, which also has an app a lot of people use called Tabs. And it is primarily for guitarists, but it has other instruments listed on it as well. Sometimes when you're looking at a ukulele song arrangement, they're not really arrangements, it depends on who's uploaded the chords. But when you're looking at ukulele chords, it can show you ukulele shapes, and there's an automatic transposition tool on that website, which we can look at real quick, although it is, more extensively used in video 2. Let me just show you this. We're gonna have to flip over from the streaming page to, oh, there it is, Ultimate Guitar. So for example, I pulled up the song Firework by Katy Perry, and it's got, this is not the default key that it was in, but let's say it came up in F sharp and you were like, I can't play these chords easily, I don't want to play it in F sharp, or I can't sing these notes easily. Then you can, down here where it says transpose, you can bump it up one at a time, or bump it down if you want it to go lower one at a time to find something that looks familiar to you. You can even click through to see other chord shapes for the same chord in case you want to play up the neck or something like that. There's just a lot you can do on this website, even just with the free version. So this is one we obviously looked at in video 2, and it's a great one for automatic transposition. Now what I will say is sometimes the chords get a little overcomplicated because guitarists have more strings. Sometimes if a guitarist has written down the chords and then they're just copy and pasted into the ukulele version as well, then you may end up with more complicated chords than you need, and you may even be able to simplify. Like if I'm playing a song that I see a D9, well, I could play the D9 on ukulele, and I could look up how to do that if I don't already know how to do that, or I could just try a D7 and see if that works. Or if you don't know suspended chords, the ones that say G sus4, for example, you could try playing a regular G and see if that works. And a lot of that will have to do with your singing and whether it sounds right to your ear, so if you are singing along. So you can do some testing of the chords, and sometimes we can simplify them. And I often do that when I'm making my own arrangements. I'll start from something like what I see on one of those websites, and then I will say, oh, but for my purposes, I need to change this, or I can make this simpler, or sometimes I even want to make it more complicated. I want to make this song jazzier, say, and I'm going to use some different chords. So, but that's a good place to start with an automatic transposition tool, and that's my point for this video. Another website that is specific to ukulele and a lot of people use for the songbook is called Jim's Songbook. So let me show you that. Jim's Songbook is at the website OZBCOZ. Let's find it here. Where's Jim's? Here it is. So I call that Oz because, but I don't know how it's actually supposed to be pronounced. But Jim has tons and tons and tons of songs. They're all notated like this, very, very easy to read. You've got the chord shapes off to the side, and you've got a lot of things you can do, including changing the key. And here, instead of saying transpose, it says key. But you see, similar thing, you can actually go up more than one at a time. You can say, okay, this is in the key of D, but I really want it to be a lot higher than this. This is so low in my voice. You could try out F, and you could look at the chords over here and say, okay, those are mostly playable, but oh, I can't play that B flat, and so maybe I'll go back and try a different one, and let me go back down to C, and maybe I could sing it up the octave in C, those sorts of things like we talked about in the second video. So basically a website like this, and there are a few other ones, will allow you to transpose automatically. So my recommendation for you would be, anytime you find your chords on the internet, look around the margins of the page and see if there's an automatic transposition tool, because there might be. And then if you can't find that, or if what you have is a PDF, or if you've been kind of typing out the chords on your own, or you have them written out, then what you can do is you can cut and paste them into a website that will do the transposing for you. So let's say you have one of my chord sheets, and you, let's see here, let me pull up my songbook. Here's my jam packet that I use, and let's say that we're going to, you're going to be working on your own, not playing with my group, the 59th Street Bridge song, but you don't like the key that I teach it in. You think this is too high for you. So you can copy and paste, and I'm just going to do a stanza, but you can do the whole song. I just copied that using my keyboard, and then what you can do is you can go to a website. I'll put the link to this in the description box. You can go to this website called Logue, Logue, And you see here, I've already clicked to it, but if you came back to the home page, here, let's go back to the home page, logue.net. I wanted to make sure it was working before I told you to use this website. If you come, here's the landing page for the website. If you click on transpose, I don't even use advanced transpose. I don't think you need to. You can, there's all kinds of stuff it'll do, but I just use the simple transpose. I will paste in my text I want to transpose. I find it easiest if it's already in brackets, but actually it will transpose even if the chords are not in brackets. Some websites it doesn't cut and paste from very well. Like it actually wouldn't cut and paste for me from Jim's Songbook, but Jim's has a transposition tool, so I was just using that as an example and it didn't really work. But look here, if you don't know what key it is, you can say you don't know and you can just leave that blank and say, but I know I want the chords to be higher, so I'll just say, because C is my first chord, I'm going to try this. I'm sorry, I said it would be lower, but let's just go up higher. I'm going to see my keys or chords are in D. You can click here and it will try to find what the original key was for you. And make a suggestion. If you don't feel that's right, then you can just go right back and you can click a different letter and have it transcribe it with other chords. And it's giving it to you twice. It's giving it to you once with the chords in the brackets in line with the text, and once with them written over the top where they would be if you like that format better. So you can then recopy and paste this back into whatever you like. Now for old key, I often will just type in whatever my first chord is. I haven't gotten in too much trouble doing this, even though I know, as I said in previous videos, that's not always the key you're in, but usually I'll use the first or the last chord. I'll say that's my key, and then I'll say what I wish that chord was. So let's say I didn't like this C, and so I told you in a previous video you can often flip between C and G. If C is not good for your voice, G might be, and vice versa. You can then say I'll choose G, and then I'll click here, and it now has made G the first chord, and it's changed everything else too. And it does it in the it keeps everything in tune with itself. So all of these would fit within the same key. Now you may end up then with a chord that you don't know the shape of, and this website does not show you shapes. This one is just very bare bones. So then I might have to take a chord like A7 sus4 to another website and say, oh, how do I actually play this chord? But this is a great tool, logue.net, and I use it a lot, and it's totally free. And most of the time it works. Occasionally it has a fight with a website, or if you have like a bracket that's not complete, then it will get confused. See, here we go. So you have to make sure all your brackets are there if you get an error message like that. But I love this tool. I use it a lot, especially if I have something I can easily cut and paste from, or I might even type something out myself and then put it in there if I need to. So let's go back to my notes and see what I wanted to talk about next. You'll find, as I said, other sites that will transpose for you too. So just keep an eye out, or if someone tells you, hey, this website's great, it has a transposition tool, you'll know that you can look for it there. So the next tool I want to talk about is one that there's a little bit of controversy about in the ukulele world, which I find so interesting because guitarists use this tool as well. You may know what I'm talking about already. And there's not so much controversy that I've heard, and not that I'm a guitarist, but I don't hear a lot of controversy about this from my guitarist friends. And that is the capo or capo. I've heard people pronounce this different ways, and I think there may even be US to British, we pronounce it differently, but I've always grown up calling this a capo. My dad, a guitarist, called it a capo, and so that's what I call it. But if you pronounce it differently, then I'm not telling you you're incorrect. But there are a lot of people who are guitarists and banjo players who use these to change the key. And then when it comes to ukulele, sometimes you will hear people say, oh, you know, you shouldn't use one because that just shows you can't play enough chords, or you're not skilled enough, or, you know, they act like it's a not allowed tool. And I'm here to tell you it is allowed to be used. And if you are more comfortable playing with one, now I will say sometimes I don't find them comfortable, and sometimes I'd rather learn chords or do one of my other methods I'm going to show you, or, you know, transpose like I just showed you, than use one. But there have been times when it's seemed like the best option to me, including sometimes when you're doing fancier picking patterns and you want to preserve the highness and lowness of the notes as you're picking through specific chords. I have had this experience when I was playing Cynthia Lynn's Landslide, where I wanted to, I don't remember if it was raise or lower the key a step, and I did not know enough chords to play it up or down where I wanted to play it. But when I changed the chord shapes it also changed the picking. And so I found that by keeping the chord shapes the same, by using a capo, I was able to preserve what the picking pattern sounded like in my ear, even in a different key. If that doesn't make sense, then I apologize. But basically, there are times when you want to preserve the sound of something, even though you're going to make it higher or lower. And sometimes a capo may be the best way to do that. So my advice to you is, if you don't know a lot of chords and you think you want to start transposing for your voice, it's not a bad idea to have an ukulele capo, but I would learn chords, and that would be my preferred way of transposing whenever I have the option. If I'm playing in a really strange key though, and I'm going to show you another way to change the tuning as well, but sometimes I will use a capo, and there shouldn't be any shame in that, and it doesn't make any sense to shame people for using them or to assume that it's because they don't know enough chords, because I've seen very accomplished guitar players slap on a capo and use it. Now the thing that I will say is there are lots of different styles of these, and I actually have a bunch of them here to show you, because there's some that I really dislike and some I love, and this is very personal. You may have very different tastes, and you may already have a capo that you love, and it may not be one that I show, or it may be one I show and I say I don't like. So it's absolutely fine for you to have your own preferences or to explore this. If you're in a group that plays together, I would have like a capo day and have everybody bring them so that you can try each other's out and see which one you like before having to buy. But if you're starting from scratch and you don't have one yet, let me just show you what I prefer. The first thing is that you can make a capo out of a pencil, which is kind of cool. Oh, I should say this before I show you how to use the capo. I'll say the way that the capo works is easiest for me to explain if you think of the capo as being basically the same thing as this nut, this nut that goes across at the bottom of your headstock at the top of your fretboard is where the strings start playing music. And so wherever our fingers go that block the sound from behind them to the nut, that's how we change the tone. So like if I'm on the C string, you hear how it gets higher. And I think we don't always think about this, but that's because I'm pressing the string down here, so this part of it is vibrating. And if I move my finger up here, this much of it is vibrating, and that makes the tone higher. And if I move it way up here, an even shorter length is vibrating, and that. So what I can do to keep my intervals between the notes G, C, E, A the same, but make them higher, and I can't use it to make anything lower, but you can only use a capo to go up. But if I want to make it higher, what I basically need to do is move this nut up. So I could use my finger and change the tuning of my ukulele. And because these frets each represent a half step or one note on the piano, if you know the piano keyboard, this would go, for example, from G, C, E, A to G sharp, C sharp, E sharp, which is F, and A sharp or B flat. You know, each sharp also has a flat that goes with it. But then if I moved it up again, then I've gone two half steps or one whole step. Now I've gone to A here, and if you think about it, you can hear that. That's the same note an octave apart. So I've gone to A, D, F sharp, and B. So the same thing that you can use your finger for, just making bar chords, and the same reason that this shape of adding this barred finger to an F shape, like let's say you have your F on your first and second fret, but you play it with your middle and your ring finger, and you scoot it up, and you put down this finger, that's an F sharp. The same thing is that's a G, that's a G sharp, that's a A. The same thing you can do with your finger, you can do with a capo, and it doesn't wear your finger out. So in order to make that bar, as I was saying, the simplest thing you can do is use a pencil. And I've got a little hair tie rubber band. You could probably also use a braces rubber band, or you could tie a rubber band shorter or double it over. Hopefully this rubber band won't break the second I do this, because you do need a rubber band that's not going to break. But basically, and a golf pencil would probably work even better, because I'm going to have to pull this over. There we go. So now I've created that nut. And because this is nice and tight, it's holding the pencil down onto the strings as if it were my finger, or as if it were this nut, just scooched forward one fret space. It's not holding it tight enough. It did it the first time I tried this. Oh, you know what? It's probably because it's the first fret, and the first fret is notoriously a little higher on the action. So let's loop our rubber band over. Let's try it again. Almost. Let's move it forward though, because I think it'll get better as the action gets lower on my strings. Yeah, it's not perfect. I think what I would probably have to do is tighten down this even more. You have to get the perfect like ratio of pressure on the strings so that it will. Oh, you know what I did when I was testing this before? I remember why it worked, because I wasn't doing it on my tenor. So it might not be strong enough to hold down the strings on my tenor. I was doing it before on a little soprano. So let's try it on the soprano. Again, we're live, folks, not doing any editing here. You get to see that I'm human, as a patron said to me once when I complained about a mistake I'd made. Yes, exactly. So let's say I didn't have that on there. When it is on there, it's a little clanky. Again, we'd tighten that down one more. This is not what I would recommend anyone do. I'm just trying to show you that in a pinch you could get away with a pencil. I'm going to move it up to the next fret. It's not a perfect sound, but it works. Every time I move it up, the whole tuning of each string goes up another half step. So if I played a C chord, pretending this was my nut, so I'm going to count 1, 2, 3 from my new nut. Now I'm actually playing a C sharp. And if I want to play a D with that C shape, I would put the capo on the 2nd fret, and I would count 1, 2, 3. And now I'm actually playing a D. This ukulele is out of tune. Okay, so not the ideal example, but you can do it, and you might need a thicker pencil for a tenor, and that might be the problem that I made just there. But again, I wouldn't do it with a pencil. I would buy a capo. The pencils are kind of fun to play around with, but obviously not easy to fine tune. So let's go back to my tenor, and let me show you what I tried in the course of trying out different capos. First, I tried one of these spring clamp kind of ones, which you see, this is a shape and sort of mechanic you see a lot of guitar players use. And there's two ways you can put it on. You can put it on with the sort of claw grip part back towards your body, or you can put it on with the claw grip part towards the front. And I think that this is a lot harder to play around, so I would always put it on the back, so that when I put my hand in front of it, I'm not having to deal with something that sticks out right here. And the reason I don't like this shape, and again, that's a C sharp now, not a C, because I'm using this as my new nut, but all the tuning is moved up a half step, C sharp, D, D sharp, D. What I don't like about this is it's just kind of like a little bit in the way for me as I'm moving my hand around. And maybe I want to do something that tilts my hand. I mean, it's not, because I'm a little bit better of a player now than I was when I first bought this capo. I don't actually find it as obnoxious as I did back then. But I just remember feeling very frustrated by this particular capo. So I quickly discarded this, and I didn't like it. But if you're a better player than I was when I was a beginner, you may be just fine with one of these. And I think now I could probably play around that. Then I bought this style, which is kind of like a metal bar with an elastic. Oops, the metal bar just fell out. It's a metal bar inside a tube with an elastic piece around it that can loop over and, sorry, I'm not showing it on the screen, and hook over onto itself. So if I put that on as my new nut, and then I pull this around and hook it to the other end of this metal bar. Ooh, this one also is not really made for a tenor. I think sometimes when people make capos for ukuleles, they're just thinking about concert and soprano size. So let's try it on the soprano, because actually what I had when I first started out was a soprano and a soprano with a concert neck. So, okay. Yeah, this one wouldn't work on a tenor or a baritone. You may be able to find some in this style that do, but the reason I didn't like that style is what you just saw. I found it too tight and hard to put on. Now it's much nicer for tone than a pencil, and it was pretty inexpensive. I don't remember how much it cost, but I don't recommend this shape because it also sort of seems precarious to me. Like I just felt like I could bump it and the thing could flip off and go flying across a room and, you know, ping into somebody's face. So I didn't like this particular style either. I did not find it easy to use. Now, there was a capo that people kept recommending to me that I did not get for a long time. And I will show it to you now because I finally did get it and I like it. And it's the D'Addario, I think it's called Planet Waves. And the reason that people recommend this is because, again, it has a very low profile. So unlike this one, no matter which way you put it on, it's not going to stick out really far from the neck of your instrument. And it screws on, and so you can kind of adjust how much you want to clamp it down. And you can put it on either side. If it gets in your way that way, you can put it on this way. But basically, this is the one that I hear most people have, and I think it's a nice one. If you can strum it through each note individually and it doesn't clank and sound plasticky like when I had the pencil on it, then that's a good success in my book. A lot of people like this clamp and they find it really easy to use, and of course it's a very simple design. What I got before I got that one that I also like very much and in fact find myself using the most is actually there was one more I got before that. I got this one by G7th as a gift from my parents, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is the coolest one because it has a sort of internal clamping mechanism that releases with this little button on the bottom. So it's a very fast clamp and unclamp because you just put it on like that and then it unclamps like that. You don't have to screw it on and off. It just goes on and you squeeze and it's on. And then when you want to take it off, it unclamps. This one was the most expensive one. As I said, it was a gift and I love it, and it is the fastest one to use. Like if you were playing a song and then you were going to play another song and you wanted to just whip the capo off super fast, this would be the one I would choose. But again, as a beginner, I found that this one got in my way, and in fact it even gets in my way a little more than the clamp one I didn't like because it pokes out further, and even if I turn it around, it still pokes out a little further than I like from the edge of the neck. So for example, if you're someone who plays your B flat very much lying back towards your headstock, you have to kind of adjust your hand position to play around this capo. And I found that annoying because I did play some of my chords a little bit more leaned back. So again, your mileage could vary. You could already be playing sort of straight onto the neck, or you could find it no big deal to kind of adjust your hand angle. And if so, I do still think this is a brilliant design, and I love how easy it is. And this G7th is the brand. This one is, I still think it's great, and I do carry it with me sometimes if I'm going to perform somewhere and I want a capo for one song. The one I've come to use the most is also by G7th, and I think it's called the UltraLight. And again, this is not an ad that I don't get any kickback or anything. I don't have any affiliate links for you to buy, merch and give me money from it. But this one is such a small profile, and even though it's very similar to the Planet Waves, I just feel like it's a little more secure, and that's probably just a mental thing. I probably just prefer it, as a mental, psychosomatic kind of a thing. It screws down. It's not the fastest to put on, and it does have to go all the way around, so it is a little bit more complicated than this one, but not really. And it does, again, it sticks out no matter which side I put it on. It's going to stick out a little bit, but I just find that tiny little skinny profile bothers me less. And of course, when you start playing up the neck, you won't even notice it anymore. But if you're playing beginner shape chords around a capo, you're going to have to do some adjusting. So whatever style of capo you choose, I would say you might have to adjust your hand and wrist position to play some of the chords. And another thing that helped me when I was first starting out was sometimes to play with a strap, so I wasn't worried as much about holding the instrument up around the capo. And also sometimes I had to lower the neck of my instrument. So a lot of teachers tell you to play in this sort of like 10 and 2 position, or seatbelt position, I've heard people call it. For me, I had to play it more like Taylor Swift plays her ukulele, which was down kind of like almost straight across, so that my fingers then would approach the neck more straight on. And again, this is something that a more accomplished player might not have had to make these kinds of arrangements, but otherwise I would find myself trying to reach over my capo to make the chords. So experiment with it. If you have a capo and you're trying to play and you find yourself playing around it a lot, try dropping the neck, try adjusting your wrist so it's coming on a little more flat. Now you still don't want to hyperextend or like get way up here, but you might have to experiment a little bit if you're going to be playing a lot of chords right next to your capo. And again, just remember, you're not playing anything behind your capo. Wherever you put your capo, it's the new nut. So you're not playing anything back here, so you wouldn't be playing anything here. It would all go in front, and this would become your new nut, which means if you're playing a C, you'd count forward 3 from there, not from back here, or not feel like I'm counting 3, but then I'm just going to this one. It's definitely from that bar that you've created. And it would be the same thing if you'd created the bar with your finger and you were making bar chords that way. All right. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. I've got to get this off here. All right, so the way that you would use this in a song, for example, and let's go back to You Are My Sunshine on Jim's Songbook. All right, I've got that open now. I'm just going to give you a quick example of this. So let's say you're playing You Are My Sunshine. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Now remember, you can't go lower using a capo. So let's pretend that that was too low for me. It's not actually. Oh, you know what we can do though? Let's do this. Let's change the key first to G and hear what it would sound like in G for me. Because I was telling you, you can often go between the two. Sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. Yes. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. So let's pretend I can't hit those notes. And I really want to play it in A, let's say. Let's look at what A would look like if I go up 2 steps. I'm going to be at A. And these chords are pretty easy, so you probably would be okay with that. But let's say, ooh, I don't even like it in A. I actually want to play it in B. This is the perfect key for my voice. Oh no, look at those chords. So what you could do is, let's go back to A. Let's go back to A and say I can play all those shapes. My sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. But let's pretend that's too low for me. And let's say I really want to sing it in B, but I hate those chord shapes. I would take my capo and I would put it on the 2nd fret because I needed to go up 2 steps. And you can see that here in this. You can see that you're on A currently, and if you want to be on B, you need to go up 2 half steps to get there. So that's 2 fret spaces. So if I put the capo on fret 2, then play these shapes in A, I'm actually playing a B. And when I play D, I'm actually playing an E. And when I play E7, I'm actually playing an F sharp 7. And all those keys that we saw when we went up to B, and we didn't want to play that. See, we're playing all these, but with the capo, we can go back to the comfortable shapes. So then it would be like this. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Okay, and just to demonstrate that that's a B, I'm going to play the A shape with that capo, and then I'm going to take the capo off and play a B, and you'll hear it's the same chord. Okay, hang on to that sound. I hope you heard that was the same. That's the same. So that's what the capo does, and that's how you can use it. All right. I hope that was helpful. Again, no shame in using one, no matter what anybody tells you in a Facebook group. You can use it if you want, and you can also be learning more chords in the background, or you could be doing it for another reason, and it's totally up to you. All right, so let me see if I had any more tips I wanted to tell you. No, I thought that was everything for that. Okay, so there is one more thing I want to show you. But how long is this video already? Maybe I'll make this a 5 video series. Okay. I think I want to stop here. This series has been evolving clearly, and when I first started it, I thought it was going to be 3, and then I said, oh no, I need another video in there for an exercise, and then I said, okay, it's going to be 4, and now I think it's going to be a 5 video series. So here's what I'm going to tell you about in the next video. In part 4, I am going to show you how to retune up or down your instrument, and or use a baritone tuning on a baritone going back and forth between a baritone tuned instrument and a GCEA tuned instrument, how that both of those things can be used for transposing. So tuning, and also if you happen to have a baritone that's tuned DGBE, or some people have tenors that are tuned DGBE, but if you have a DGBE tuned instrument and a GCEA tuned instrument, how you can go back and forth between the two to transpose sort of automatically. I'll show you both of those in the next video, and then on my final video I'll talk to you about how we start to internalize these things and transpose off the top of our heads. And there's a couple of different ways that will involve as well. But I don't want to make these videos super long, and so we're going to stop there for today. And hopefully, if you have questions or if you have things that you feel like I didn't mention yet and you're afraid I'm not going to, please put them in the comments, and I'll make sure I get to them before we finish this series. I don't think there'll need to be a 6th video, but you know, as I said, it's evolving, so we'll see how it works. Thank you very much for joining me today. I always have to give my patrons a huge shout out because it is their support that allows me, a serial freelancer, to do any of this work at all, because I have other day jobs, and in order to do ukulele work I have to take time away from those, and the fact that I have some people who are supporting me on a monthly basis is amazing, and I thank you so much for making videos like this possible. If you want to support me on Patreon for 1 month or more, you can find the link in the description box below, but even if you never do that, I thank you for being here and for watching this video, and I thank you for the support I'm getting from everyone who watches these and leaves such nice comments and suggestions, and it all helps me decide what I'm going to work on next. So if you're not so interested in transposing, but you watched this and made it here anyway, I thank you, and let me know what other topics or songs you'd like to see me include in these one-take tutorials. And that's it for me for today. I will check in with you again on the subject of transposing soon, because I am so excited to do this video series, so I'm finding myself very motivated to keep making these videos, and it won't be too much longer before we finish them out. So thanks again for being here. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are, whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you on the internet.